Greetings, podcast listeners. I'm the Western Wonder, and you're listening to the Pic-a-Flic podcast, a series where I, your host, covers a variety of different film and sometimes TV the best way that I know how. I'm excited to review this particular film that's being profiled in this episode, so let's get right into things. To close out Black History Month, I watched the two-time Oscar-nominated film Nickel Boys. Directed by Ramel Ross, this film is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel of the same name written by Colson Whitehead. The story, based on true-life events, follows Elwood, a young kid with an aspiring, promising life ahead of him, which is immediately shifted when he's forced to attend a reform school after riding in a stolen vehicle. As he adapts to the environment, which is riddled with targeted racism and segregated classes, he befriends another kid named Turner, and the two ponder on life outside of the academy, and how they plan to get out unscathed. Like plenty of others out there watching this film, I was not familiar with the original source material that the film is based on, so I went into this film cold. But I have to say that throughout this, I was absolutely immersed. There's something about the way that the story was told that really keeps your attention, the kind of slow burn that works extremely well. There are certain historical inserts and flashbacks via various footage and audio that gives it a bit of a documentary vibe, which was interesting. And I cannot stress this enough, but director Ramel Ross handles the camera work here like a pro. The choice to shoot this in first person made this film an extremely immersive experience, and I especially liked the first person shift from different perspectives of the characters. Admittedly, I was a bit confused at some points, but I eventually got into the groove of things as the story progressed. The cinematography from Jamal Frey is something beautiful as well. It takes you into this time period and you can film the warmth of the scenery being shown, especially the scenes that show Elwood's childhood. Another element that I'm glad didn't show up was a more graphic on-screen visual of the abuse that the students endured in the academy. There have been films that veered toward this territory before, and it can take away from the story, but this film doesn't do that. The still images and audio mark the landing and its impact. There are two scenes from this movie that did stand out to me. The boxing sequence that takes place, and of course, the ending. There's a certain time frame that the story is being told, but it's from the back of one of the main characters, and you really don't know for sure who it really is. Once again, some of that confusion felt early on started rushing back in during these scenes. But when the final minutes of the movie reveal who was telling their side of the story and who survived, it all starts to click. And I gotta say, man, goosebumps were felt. I just sat in my room speechless for several minutes. The cast here is great, all of them turn in great performances. Ethan Herisse plays the brooding yet optimistic part of Elwood greatly, and Brandon Wilson is a frenetic and heartfelt counterpart in the role of Turner. This duo has such amazing chemistry together, which made the impending conclusion to the arc even more devastating in the end. I also have to shout out the supporting actors, the particular standout being Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, who left me emotional in another film from last year, The Supremes of Earl's All You Can Need, who should have been nominated for an Oscar for her performance here as Elwood's grandmother. There is a line that she utters to Turner upon their first meeting that will hit different when the final act comes around. Her kindness, empathy, and compassion made her such a gravitating character, so much so that you want to give her a big hug. Hamish, Linklater, one of the present-day voices for the Batman universe, and Fred Hechinger, who had strong roles in Gladiator 2 and Thelma last year, also stand in their respective parts of the corrupt and shady administrator and an employee of the Academy's labor program. An additional thing I'd like to add, the score and sound complemented each other greatly too. There are different pieces that matches the variety of different moods and emotions that the film goes through, and it's a beautiful set of arrangements on that front. Then there's the sound editing that goes into certain scenes that gives it a certain air to the overall aesthetic that is at times refreshing and at others breathtaking. Props to the composers and the sound crew for their work. On the Pic-a-Flic movie rating scale, I'll give Nickel Boys 4.5 out of 5 popcorn buckets. This film is an extremely powerful and moving snapshot of the time period that it portrays, and it's a perfect addition to film adaptations done right this decade. While I briefly mentioned the Oscars earlier on the topic of Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor being snubbed, I'd like to go back on the topic quickly. In another year, I feel like this movie would have been taken more serious as a Best Picture candidate, and it definitely got done dirty in certain categories. How I missed both Best Cinematography and Best Sound is beyond my comprehension. Two elements that add to the heart and soul of the movie not getting their dues as highway robbery. But I highly recommend that you check out this movie, and you will be as moved and immersed as I was with it. It's the kind of slow burn film that has a very impactful payoff when it's all said and done. And also, check out the original novel. I have it on my list to read at a later time so I can revisit the film with further context. And that'll be a wrap on this review. Now, next up on the pod, once I finally get around to it next month, I do want to cover the show Severance. I folded to the hype and I'm giving it a shot, so stay tuned for my thoughts. If you'd like to be among the first to get notifications on when new reviews and episodes drop, be sure to subscribe to the pod wherever you listen, and hey, tell a friend to tell another friend of their cousins to check out the pod. All support and feedback is appreciated. If you want to follow the show on social media, we can be found on Twitter /X, Instagram, and TikTok under the username handle at Pic-a-Flic Pod. That is at PICAFLICPOD. If review logging is your thing, then you may be familiar with Letterboxd, where you can also find non-audio exclusive reviews that I do under the aforementioned Pic-a-Flic Pod username handle. So be sure to follow me if you use that platform. Once again, thank you all for tuning in to the show, and until the next chapter, this is The Western Wonder, and I'm signing out. Peace.
Bye, have a great time.